June 6, 1944, 4:58 a.m. Normandy, France. The sea is black and restless, a cold wind cutting across the decks of Allied battleships as they loom just beyond the horizon. Somewhere out there, the coast of France is hidden behind darkness and drifting mist. On the bridges of cruisers and destroyers, officers stare through binoculars, waiting for the signal. Sailors grip shell casings the size of oil drums. You can almost feel the tension humming through the steel hulls. Then, without warning, the night explodes. A wall of fire erupts from the Allied fleet. 16-inch guns from the battleship USS Nevada thunder like earthquakes. British cruisers join in, their broadsides flashing orange across the sea. The sky over Normandy turns into a flickering storm of flame and smoke as hundreds of naval guns begin pounding the coast. On shore, German soldiers are jolted awake by shockwaves that rattle concrete bunkers. Sandbags burst. Telephone lines snap. Entire gun positions vanish under geysers of dirt and steel. The Atlantic Wall is under attack. And far from the beaches, in Germany, a man who warned them this would happen is already being proven right. Field Marshal Erwin Rommel stands at a window in Herrlingen, near Ulm. The former commander of the Afrika Korps, the Desert Fox, the most feared defensive general in the Wehrmacht, is home on leave. His wife Lucy is in the next room. Outside, the countryside is quiet. Then the phone rings. Rommel lifts the receiver. The voice on the other end is strained, breathless. The invasion has begun. Rommel closes his eyes. For months, he had begged Berlin to listen. For months, he had warned them that the Atlantic Wall was a lie. And now, before sunrise, it is collapsing. Along the Normandy coast, German soldiers stumble from bunkers into choking smoke. At Longsurmer, a coastal battery tries to return fire. A moment later, a shell from the British cruiser HMS Ajax punches straight through the concrete casemate. The gun crew is buried alive. At Point du Hoc, Rangers are already climbing the cliffs. Ropes sway in the wind. Grappling hooks catch on jagged rock. German machine guns rake the cliff face, cutting men down as they climb. But the naval bombardment has smashed the defenses. Many of the guns the Germans expected to protect them are already silent. Behind the beaches, the sky fills with aircraft. Thousands of C-47 transport planes roar overhead, engines droning like a swarm of steel insects. Paratroopers from the U.S. 82nd and 101st Airborne Divisions leap into the darkness. British gliders crash into hedgerows and flooded fields. German flak guns fire wildly, red tracers slicing through the clouds. Men land in rivers, in trees, in burning villages. The Atlantic Wall was supposed to stop an invasion at the shoreline. The enemy is already behind it. This is exactly what Rommel warned them about. When Rommel was placed in charge of Army Group B in late 1943, he toured the French coast from the Belgian border to the Bay of Biscay. What he saw horrified him. The Atlantic Wall looked impressive on paper. Hitler had ordered it built as Fortress Europe, a chain of bunkers, gun batteries, minefields, and obstacles stretching for thousands of miles. But Rommel knew paper defenses didn't stop wars. He saw unfinished bunkers with no guns. He saw coastal batteries without ammunition. He saw beach obstacles that had been planted too far from the tide line. He saw divisions with no fuel and no transport. Worse than that, he saw an enemy with complete control of the sky. Every day, Allied fighters and bombers prowled over France. German convoys were shredded on the roads. Trains burned in marshalling yards. Bridges collapsed under precision bombing. Rommel understood what Berlin refused to accept. If the Allies landed, their air power would isolate the battlefield. German reinforcements would be cut to pieces before they ever reached the beaches. And Allied naval guns would do what no concrete wall could stop. So he wrote. And he warned. Again and again. Rommel demanded that the invasion be stopped at the shoreline, not pushed back, not counterattacked later, stopped in the water. He ordered millions of mines laid. He filled the beaches with steel hedgehogs and wooden stakes tipped with explosives. He flooded entire valleys behind the coast to trap paratroopers. He reinforced coastal divisions and pushed artillery closer to the sea. But it wasn't enough. The Atlantic Wall was too long, the resources were too thin, and Germany's command structure was paralyzed by politics. Field Marshal Gerd von Rundstedt believed in holding armored reserves back for a counterattack. Rommel believed the battle would be decided in the first hours. Hitler refused to choose. No one was allowed to move panzer divisions without his personal approval. So Germany waited. And the Allies prepared. At 5:30 a.m., Allied bombers arrive over the beaches. Hundreds of B-17s and Lancasters drop their loads through broken clouds. Explosions walk inland like rolling thunder. Entire sections of coastline vanish under curtains of fire. German radar stations are already destroyed. Coastal observation posts are smashed. Command bunkers lose contact with their units. At Omaha Beach, the heaviest defenses in Normandy are being torn apart by naval fire. Concrete cracks, steel doors buckle. Inside bunkers, men bleed from their ears as the pressure waves slam into them. At Utah Beach, landing craft are already approaching the shore. The invasion is not coming. It is here. Back in Germany, Rommel rushes to his staff car. He orders the driver to take him west at full speed. He knows what is happening. He knows what will happen next. The Atlantic Wall was never meant to withstand this kind of power. No fixed defense could. Not against battleships, not against massed air power, not against an enemy that controls the sky and sea. Rommel warned them that the first day would decide the war in the West. And the first day is barely beginning. As his car races toward Normandy, thousands of Allied soldiers are already fighting their way off the beaches. German units are confused. Commanders argue. Telephone lines are dead. Reports contradict each other. Is this the real invasion? Or just a diversion? Berlin hesitates. And hesitation is fatal. Because while they debate, the Atlantic Wall is breaking apart piece by piece. And Rommel knows, by nightfall, Hitler's greatest defensive project will be nothing more than shattered concrete and burning steel. The guns continue to fire. The sky fills with aircraft. The sea turns white with foam and smoke. And the fate of Fortress Europe is being decided in the first light of dawn. The first German report reaches Berlin just after 6:00 a.m. Enemy landings confirmed along the Normandy coast. In the Führer headquarters at Berghof, telephones ring unanswered. Senior officers hesitate to wake Hitler. He had gone to bed late. He had ordered not to be disturbed. So while the greatest amphibious invasion in history is unfolding, the man who built the Atlantic Wall is asleep. Along the beaches of Normandy, German defenses are already cracking. At Omaha Beach, the sea is choked with landing craft. Ramps slam down. Men leap into waist-deep water under machine gun fire. Mortars burst along the shoreline. Tracers slice across the surf like glowing knives. The 352nd Infantry Division fights hard. MG-42s hammer the beach. Artillery shells tear into the first waves. Entire squads vanish in sprays of sand and blood. But above them, Allied naval guns keep firing. Destroyers push dangerously close to shore, skimming over mines to get better angles. The USS Frankfurt fires point-blank into German pillboxes. The USS McCook hammers cliff positions until their barrels glow red. One by one, the concrete monsters that Hitler believed were indestructible begin to fall silent. At Gold Beach, British engineers blow gaps through obstacles under fire. Tanks modified with flails churn through minefields. Specialized armored vehicles, Hobart's funnies, roll ashore like mechanical beasts, tearing open the defenses. At Juno Beach, Canadian infantry stormed through villages that were supposed to be impregnable. By mid-morning, they are already pushing inland. The Atlantic Wall is not holding. It is being overrun. German commanders scramble for clarity. Is this the main invasion, or another feint like Deep, or a diversion before the real landing at Calais? Field Marshal von Rundstedt demands immediate release of the Panzer reserves. General Spadel, Rommel's chief of staff, calls Berlin again and again. Release the armor now, he insists. The decision is being made on the beaches. But the response is always the same. Hitler must decide. And Hitler is still asleep. At Kärnten, American paratroopers fight house to house against German Fallschirmjäger. In St. Miraglais, U.S. 82nd Airborne troopers hang dead from church steeples, shot while tangled in their parachutes. The town is captured by sunrise. Behind the beaches, German roads are burning. Allied fighter-bombers, Typhoons, Thunderbolts, Mustangs prowl the countryside, hunting anything that moves. Columns of trucks are shredded. Fuel convoys erupt into fireballs. Armored units trying to redeploy are trapped on narrow roads, bombed and strafed into twisted wreckage. Rommel was right. The battlefield is already isolated. The Atlantic Wall was supposed to delay the enemy long enough for armored counterattacks to throw them back into the sea. But the armor cannot move. The sky belongs to the Allies. Rommel's staff car races west at nearly 100 kilometers per hour. The field marshal sits rigid in the back seat, studying maps, listening to fragments of radio traffic. Reports flood in from Normandy. Enemy airborne everywhere. Coastal batteries destroyed. Naval bombardment overwhelming. Rommel knows this moment. He saw it coming. He had warned them. Now Germany is paying for ignoring him. By mid-morning, the scale of the disaster is undeniable. Over 150,000 Allied troops are coming ashore. More than 5,000 ships fill the channel. The largest armada in history stretches from horizon to horizon. German coastal divisions are being smashed in place. Their artillery is being hunted by naval gunfire. Their communications are in ruins. And still Berlin hesitates. At 10:00 a.m., Hitler is finally awakened. He is told the invasion has begun. His first reaction is disbelief. He is convinced this is not the real attack. Calais, he insists, is the true target. Normandy is only a diversion. So he refuses to release the panzer divisions. The armored fist that Rommel begged for is locked in place by politics and paranoia. On the beaches, Allied commanders sense the shift. At Omaha, Rangers finally silence the last clifftop guns. Engineers clear exits through the bluffs. Tanks crawl ashore. Infantry pushes inland. At Utah, U.S. troops link up with airborne units by early afternoon. At Sword Beach, British troops race toward Cannes. By noon, the Allies have established multiple beachheads. The Atlantic Wall has failed its only purpose. It was supposed to stop them at the water. Instead, they are marching into France. In Berlin, Joseph Goebbels prepares a propaganda broadcast. He announces that Germany is repelling the invasion, that the Führer has everything under control, that the Atlantic Wall is holding. It is a lie. Out on the coast, German officers can see the truth with their own eyes. Their defenses are in ruins, their men are exhausted, their reserves are trapped, their skis are full of enemy aircraft. They are fighting the greatest military machine the world has ever assembled. And they are fighting it alone. Rommel finally reaches La Roche-Guyon, his headquarters on the Seine. He steps from the car, already issuing orders. Move every available unit toward Normandy. Ignore Berlin if necessary. Throw everything into the fight. Because if the Allies break out of the beaches, France is lost. And once France is lost, the war is lost. Rommel knows this. Rundstedt knows this. The German soldiers bleeding on the sand know this. The only man who does not yet understand is the one with the final word. And every hour he delays, the Atlantic wall crumbles further into dust. By late afternoon, Allied armor is rolling inland. German counterattacks are failing. And Rommel realizes something terrifying. The battle he feared is already slipping beyond Germany's control. Normandy, late afternoon, June 6, 1944. The smoke hangs low over the countryside, turning the sunlight into a dull red haze. Burning vehicles line the roads. Wounded men lie in hedgerows waiting for medics. Overhead, Allied fighters scream past in endless waves, hunting anything with a German cross on it. The Atlantic Wall is no longer a wall. It is a graveyard. At Point du Hoc, U.S. Rangers finally reach the top of the cliffs. They expected to find massive German guns aimed at the beaches. Instead, they find empty concrete casemates. The guns have been moved inland. So the Rangers go hunting. They find them hidden in an orchard, camouflaged with branches. The barrels still point toward the sea. The firing tables are still in place. If those guns had survived the naval bombardment, Omaha Beach would have been slaughter. The Rangers destroy them with thermite grenades. Another piece of Hitler's wall disappears. Near Caen, British troops push forward under artillery fire. The city is burning. German 21st Panzer Division launches a counterattack, its tanks rumbling toward the coast. For a moment, it looks like the Germans might split the British beachhead in two. Then the sky opens. Typhoons dive out of the clouds, rockets screaming from their wings. Tanks explode in fountains of fire. Half-tracks flip into ditches. Survivors abandon their vehicles and run for cover. The counterattack dissolves into wreckage. Rommel's nightmare has come true. The armored reserves cannot move in daylight. At La Roche-Guyon, Rommel studies the situation map. Red and blue markers are scattered across Normandy. The blue ones keep multiplying. Every report is worse than the last. German divisions are under strength. Many units are made up of teenage recruits and aging reservists. Some coastal units are filled with forced conscripts from occupied countries who surrender at the first chance. Meanwhile, the Allies keep landing more men. More tanks. More guns. More trucks. The beaches have become factories of war. Rommel orders immediate counterattacks wherever possible. He demands that the 12th SS Panzer Division, Hitlerjugend, be thrown into the fight. He calls for Panzer Lehr, Germany's most powerful armored division. But they are hours away. And the roads are death traps. Allied aircraft dominate the skies. Any movement is spotted within minutes. Columns burn before they reach the front. Rommel slams his fist on the table. The battle is being lost in the air, he tells his staff. And there is nothing he can do to change it. In Berlin, Hitler finally authorizes the release of some armored units. It is too late. The window has closed. The beaches are secure. The Allies are digging in. And every hour brings more men ashore. At Omaha Beach, where the fighting was the bloodiest, American troops push through the last German strongpoints. Medics work in the open, dragging wounded men behind wrecked landing craft. Engineers clear minefields under fire. By evening, the bluffs are in Allied hands. The road inland is open. At Utah Beach, General Theodore Roosevelt, Jr., walks among his men with a cane, calmly directing traffic under artillery fire. "We'll start the war from right here," he says. And they do. As the sun begins to set, the scale of the disaster becomes impossible to hide. More than 10,000 German casualties, thousands of prisoners, entire coastal divisions shattered. The Atlantic Wall, the symbol of Hitler's promise that Europe would never be invaded, has failed in a single day. What took 4 years to build has been broken in hours. Rommel drives toward the front. He wants to see it with his own eyes. The shattered bunkers, the burning guns, the beaches crawling with enemy troops. As his car passes through villages, German soldiers stare at him in silence. Some salute, some don't. They know what this means. They are watching the beginning of the end. That night, Rommel finally reaches the outskirts of Normandy. The horizon glows red from burning fuel dumps. The thunder of artillery rolls across the fields. The war has come to France, and it is not leaving. Rommel stands beside the road, staring west. Somewhere beyond the smoke, Allied engineers are building roads on the beaches. Artificial harbors are already being assembled. Pipelines will soon run under the sea. This is not a raid. This is an invasion that will not be pushed back. Rommel whispers to one of his officers, "If they break out of the bridgehead, we are finished." He knows what comes next. And he knows Berlin still does not fully understand. But by now, it no longer matters. The Atlantic Wall is dead. Fortress Europe has fallen. And the road to Germany is open. But the bloodiest fighting is still ahead. Because now, Rommel must do the impossible. He must stop an army that cannot be stopped. June 7, 1944, Normandy, France. The morning fog clings to the hedgerows like a funeral shroud. Smoke drifts across the fields. The scent of cordite and burning fuel hangs in the air. Somewhere to the west, Allied artillery begins another rolling barrage, the distant thud echoing through the countryside. Rommel stands beside a command vehicle, binoculars pressed to his eyes. What he sees confirms his worst fears. The beaches are no longer beaches. They are ports. All along the coast, bulldozers push aside wreckage. Engineers build roads out of steel mesh laid directly over sand. Trucks roll ashore in endless columns. Tanks rumble forward, their tracks carving deep scars into French soil. Behind them, offshore, the artificial harbors, mulberries, are already taking shape. Massive concrete caissons are being towed into position. Floating roadways are anchored in place. By the end of the day, entire divisions will be unloading straight from the sea. Rommel watches in disbelief. The Allies are not just landing. They are building a country. He turns to his staff. "We must throw them back now," he says. "Every tank, every gun, every man." This is his last chance. If the bridgehead is crushed before it expands, Germany might still hold France. If not, the Reich is finished. Rommel orders the 12th SS Panzer Division, Hitlerjugend, into immediate action. Teenage soldiers, fanatically loyal, supported by experienced NCOs and hardened Eastern Front veterans. They move toward Caen under cover of night, hiding in forests during daylight to avoid Allied aircraft. Panzer Lehr follows, its columns slipping through villages after sunset, engines cut whenever aircraft are heard overhead. This is warfare by shadow. Germany is now fighting the sky. At dawn, German armor strikes. Near Authie, SS Panzer Grenadiers smash into Canadian units. Houses collapse under tank fire. Civilians flee through shell fire. The SS advance with brutal efficiency, executing prisoners, burning villages suspected of harboring resistance. For a moment, the front line buckles. But then the Allied guns answer. Naval artillery fires inland with terrifying precision. Observers on the ground call in coordinates. Minutes later, shells the size of small cars slam into German formations. Destroyers creep up rivers. Battleships pound road junctions. And overhead, Allied aircraft return. Typhoons and thunderbolts scream down on German columns, rockets shrieking, bombs tumbling from their wings. Rommel watches another counterattack dissolve into smoke. Another division shattered before it reaches the front. At headquarters, the reports are relentless. No fuel. No ammunition. Units scattered. Communications destroyed. Rommel stares at the map. He can see the Allied buildup growing by the hour. More beach exits. More supply dumps. More airfields under construction. The bridgehead is becoming a fortress of its own. An Allied Atlantic wall. Rommel sends message after message to Berlin, demanding reinforcements, demanding freedom of movement, demanding total authority over the battlefield. The replies are vague. Promises, excuses, fantasy. The Führer still believes the main invasion is coming at Calais. So half of Germany's armored strength sits idle, waiting for an enemy that will never arrive. Rommel knows the truth. This is the invasion, and it is already too strong. In a Normandy village, Rommel walks among wounded soldiers. Some are missing limbs, some are burned, some are barely conscious. They stare at him with hollow eyes. He removes his cap. He speaks quietly. He thanks them. But there is nothing he can say that will change what is coming. That evening, Rommel stands in a shattered farmhouse. Maps are spread across a wooden table. The front line is marked in grease pencil. It is bending. Slowly. Relentlessly. West to east. Toward Germany. Rommel turns to his chief of staff. "We must prepare for a long war in France," he says. But in his heart, he knows something worse. Germany cannot win a long war. Not anymore. As darkness falls, Allied searchlights sweep the sky. Anti-aircraft guns bark. Paratroopers drop supplies to the front. The sound of engines never stops. The invasion does not sleep. Rommel steps outside and looks toward the coast. He can still hear the sea. He remembers standing on those beaches months earlier, inspecting obstacles, measuring tides, arguing with engineers. He had tried to turn sand into steel. But sand is still sand. And steel breaks. A staff officer approaches him. "Field Marshal, Berlin is asking for another situation report." Rommel nods slowly. He turns back toward headquarters. He will write again. He will warn them again. But now even he knows. It is already too late. The Atlantic wall is gone. And the road to Paris is open. Yet the most dangerous moment is still coming. Because the Allies are not content with a bridgehead. They want a breakout. And when that happens, the war in the West will move faster than anyone can stop. Rommel prepares for the final defense. But fate is already closing in on him. And on Germany. June 17, 1944, Normandy. Rain falls in thin sheets over the hedgerows. The fields are churned into mud by tank tracks and shell craters. Wrecked Panthers and Panzer IVs lie abandoned in ditches, their blackened hulls still smoking. Dead horses rot beside shattered wagons. The countryside smells of fuel, blood, and wet earth. Rommel stands beside a forward command post, listening to artillery in the distance. Every explosion sounds closer. The Allies are tightening the noose. For nearly 2 weeks, German forces have tried to contain the bridgehead. They have failed. The Allied perimeter now stretches from the Cotentin Peninsula to the outskirts of Caen. Artificial harbors unload thousands of tons of supplies every day. New airfields appear almost overnight. The sky is never empty. The invasion is no longer fragile. It is unstoppable. Rommel receives a report from reconnaissance. American forces are pushing toward Cherbourg. British and Canadian troops are grinding their way through the ruins of Caen. New armored divisions are arriving daily. The Allied buildup is accelerating, and Germany is bleeding itself dry trying to stop it. At La Roche-Guyon, Rommel dictates a message directly to Hitler. Not a request, a warning. He speaks slowly, carefully choosing every word. The enemy has established a firm bridgehead. Our forces are suffering heavy losses from enemy air superiority and naval artillery. If the present situation continues, the war in the West is lost. His voice is calm, but there is no mistaking the meaning. This is the moment, the realization, the turning point. In Berlin, the message reaches the Fuhrer bunker. Senior officers read it in silence. Even the most loyal among them know Rommel is right. Field Marshal von Rundstedt has already said it openly. "Make peace, you fools," he told Kedel. But no one dares say it to Hitler's face. Hitler explodes. He accuses Rommel of defeatism. He orders counterattacks that exist only on paper. He demands impossible results from divisions that no longer exist. But reality does not bend to rage. And the front does not stop moving. On June 18th, Allied warships returned to the coast. They hammered German positions again. The battleship HMS Rodney fires 16-inch shells inland, flattening entire grid squares. The French port of Cherbourg is reduced to rubble as American troops close in from the south. German coastal batteries fire until their barrels melt. Then they are overrun. Rommel drives through the front lines one last time. He passes shattered villages, burned convoys, endless columns of wounded. A war that was supposed to be fought at the shoreline is now tearing through the heart of France. He stops near a battery of 88 guns. The crews are exhausted. Their uniforms are black with soot. They salute as he approaches. One of them asks quietly, "Herr Feldmarschall, will we stop them?" Rommel does not answer right away. He looks west, toward the sea, toward the horizon filled with Allied ships. Then he speaks. "We must try." But even as he says it, he knows. Trying is no longer enough. On June 22nd, Cherbourg falls. The port is captured intact enough to be rebuilt. Another artery opens. Another flood of supplies begins. The Allies now have everything they need. Fuel, ammunition, men, airfields, ports, factories on the beaches. Berlin finally understands. Not in speeches, not in propaganda, but in silence. The reports become shorter. The numbers become worse. The requests for reinforcements grow more desperate. And there are no reinforcements left. Germany is now fighting on three fronts. In the west, in the east, in the sky. Rommel sends one final assessment. The enemy's material superiority is overwhelming. Our forces are being destroyed from the air. The battle for France is lost. It is the truth. And everyone knows it. Even Hitler. On July 17th, Rommel climbs into his staff car near Liverot. The front is collapsing faster now. American forces are preparing for a massive breakout. Operation Cobra. The storm that will rip open the German lines. Rommel wants to reach his headquarters. He never will. As the car speeds down a narrow road, Allied fighter-bombers appear overhead. A Mustang dives. Its guns flash. Bullets rip through the windshield. The driver is killed instantly. The car crashes into a tree. Rommel is thrown from the vehicle. His skull is fractured. His face is bloodied. He is unconscious. The war will go on without him. The man who warned them. The man who tried to stop it. The man who knew the Atlantic Wall would fail. Is carried away on a stretcher. Germany's last great defensive commander is out of the war. And the last barrier between the Allies and Paris is about to break. The Atlantic Wall collapsed in one morning. Now the Reich itself is beginning to crack. And nothing can stop what comes next. End